Hello. Today I am going to introduce you to Tepac, which is a writing strategy. Tepac stands for topic sentence, evidence, paraphrase of the evidence, analysis of the evidence, and conclusion. And this is for a paragraph, not for a paper, but for one single paragraph. And it is a little formulaic, but we're going to use this to help improve our writing, at least to get started here. Now, this strategy can also be modified for other problems besides just writing a paragraph, because you're going to write a paper. It can be used just for answering an essay question. It could be used in a cartoon analysis to explain what is going on in a cartoon, as an example. So it isn't simply limited to a structure for writing a paper, for writing a paragraph that will be in a paper. But that's primarily what it's used for. So I'm going to go through these again a little bit more slowly, and then towards the end of the video, I'll apply an example that is specific for your class. So the topic sentence. A topic sentence is a claim. A sentence that tells the reader what the paragraph is going to be about. What does the paragraph prove or cover? In an argumentative essay, you're going to prove something. That's your point. To make an argument and to establish that your argument is legitimate with evidence. But it can also be that you're just covering some information. It's informative. It doesn't have to be argumentative. It can be informative. Let me start saying now, no personal pronouns. No I, no me, no you. Personal pronouns do have a place in writing. However, they're usually relied on far too much by beginning writers. And so the best way to eliminate that is to not allow them at all. So no topic sentence will ever start with, this paragraph is going to be about this, and I'm going to prove this, and I'm going to tell you about this now so that you understand. None of that is going to happen. That sentence doesn't have to exist at all. The paragraph simply starts with your statement, with your claim, with your topic sentence. The next is the evidence. And we're specifically focusing on history papers here, but this can be used often for science, for English, for psychology, for economics, many different topics. We, of course, will be focused on history. So what is your evidence? And I would like you to go ahead and pull a quote from the text. Maybe it will be a film, a diagram, a cartoon, data. For now, it's going to be text. That quote should not be 3 sentences long. It shouldn't even necessarily be a full sentence. It might be a phrase. Maybe it will be a sentence, but it won't be very long. Then your paraphrase of the evidence, telling the reader in your own words what that quote or that data actually means. What is the interpretation of it? How do you explain it a different way? That is your job to do. And when you are allowed to work together in groups, because we do that a lot in class, please remember that for this, you might all decide to use the same evidence and be making the same basic claim, but your topic sentence should be unique to you, and your paraphrase should be unique to you. I can take any complex sentence and give it to 150 different students, because I've done this before, and no two students will rewrite that sentence in exactly the same way. And in fact, we will probably do that soon, if we haven't already, depending on when someone is watching this video. So this is where you explain this information, this evidence, in your own words. It is often longer than your evidence. If your evidence is a phrase, your paraphrase is often 1, 2, 3 sentences. Could be more. 1 to 3 sentences, probably the rule. If your evidence is very long, there are times when that's appropriate, then your paraphrase will be very short. It's usually the opposite. Think about that for a minute with me. If you have something very short that you're using as evidence, which is what I recommend, then you have to go into some detail to explain what that actually means. You're not just using a thesaurus and changing out the words for a different word. That does not work. That is not a paraphrase. That is plagiarism. If it's very long, do you have the ability to sum that up and capture the essence of it, again, in 1 to 3 sentences? Your analysis of the evidence. This is often what is missing from any kind of assignment. Primary source analysis, cartoon analysis, summary of any kind of document, short answer essays, longer essays, the analysis of the evidence. What does it mean? It's the so what. So what? Who cares? Why is this important? What are the conclusions that can be drawn from the evidence? What other questions have come up because of that evidence? And then your conclusion. Summarize the information you included in this paragraph. In some ways, it is a restatement of your topic sentence, but it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you're briefly, in one sentence, because this is a paragraph, all of this goes into one paragraph. This is not a paper. This isn't a concluding paragraph. This is a concluding sentence where you're summing up everything here. The topic, the evidence, and your conclusion. So that's the introduction. So now if all you needed to do was listen to this part, you can stop this video. For students who are looking for an example of this, then attached to this video will be an example specific for your class. All right, if you stayed with me, this is for specifically U.S. history students who are studying the Lowell factory mills and child labor. So you are going to be writing paragraphs on child labor. That's what your topic is going to be. I am going to do this sample from the Factory Girls Lowell Offering December 1840 piece that you read and that you analyzed and that you summarized. So that's where this example is coming from. So just as a reminder again, the Lowell Offering was a paper that was put out by the women of the Lowell, Massachusetts factories. This was written in December 1840. You should have access to that either via your printed packet or through Google Classroom. It's always there for you. So now if I want to write a paragraph about this, I have to come up with a claim. What do I want to tell the reader? What do I want to prove? Or what information do I want to share with the reader? So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. And I'm actually doing that for the first time here. I don't have this all pre-written. Every single time I do it a different way, or I use a different piece. So I'm going to think out loud this process. And I know that what I basically want to tell my reader is that although the women worked very hard and long hours, that it wasn't all against their will, that there were reasons that they did this. So let's see what I have. In fact, I'm going to start with that although. Although, am I typing? There we go. Although the women in textile mills of the 1840s had little, no, I don't like that. Although the women in textile mills of the 1840s, oh no, I have something better. Although some people criticized the placement of women in textile mills, claiming that sorry, I had to pause it to grab my notes that we did in class, claiming that see, we talked about their health, their spirits, and their morals, right? Claiming that the health, ooh, wait a minute, the physical and emotional health of women suffered. There we go. I'm not even going to talk about the morals. That's my decision as an author. Although some people criticize the placement of women in textile mills, claiming that the physical and emotional health of women suffered, the workers themselves argued that overall they benefited from the work. See, and I still spelled it wrong. What is it? Is it one T? Yep, there we go. All right, there we go. That's my claim. Notice there's no I, me, or you. I'm not saying I'm going to tell you how the women who worked in the textile mills said that they benefited from the work. This sentence is pretty complex. Yours can be much simpler. I know that we have some excellent writers in this class, and we have some developing writers, but no matter where you're at, your skills can always be improved. And some people would argue that this sentence is too wordy. As I'm going through and revising, this sentence might change, but at least I have a place to start. And what I'm really arguing is the workers themselves argued that overall they benefit from the work. All right, so where is my evidence? I'm going to go to my document and I'm going to pause this and bring that up. All right, so here we are. This is where we're working from for this particular paragraph. And right here are the two pieces of evidence that I am using to back up my claim. So the quote is, "We are under restraints, but they are voluntarily assumed, and we are at liberty to withdraw from them whenever they become galling or irksome." And that is a whole sentence. Actually, it was ellipses there. So something's missing, but that's okay. And then the next one, notice, is not an entire sentence at all. In fact, the sentence starts here with neither and goes all the way to the end here. So notice that the sentence, this is a long sentence, begins there, but I'm not going to use any of that. I'm only going to use this phrasing right here. So I'm going to go ahead, because I am on a computer and I'm not having to write this out by hand. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this in, and I'm going to put my ellipses, and I'm going to copy the next part in also. There's my quote. I'm going to put it in quotation marks, and I also need to do something else. In order to avoid plagiarism, we have to have parenthetical documentation. And for this one, we don't have an author. Actually, it would be Factory Girls. Factory Girls. And the year 1840. All right, there's my evidence right there. Oops. All right, are we good? So now I need to paraphrase that evidence. Okay, so let's start with the workers themselves as demonstrated in this factory newsletter, because someone who hasn't read this has no idea what I'm taking this information from. They don't know what Factory Girls is. So I'm letting them know it's a factory letter. In fact, I could go further with it. Factory newsletter from 1840. There we go. Now I have the date in there. It's in the parenthetical documentation right there, but a lot of people skip over and don't pay attention to that. That isn't for reading for information purposes. It's for, if I want to follow up on your information, where do I go to find more information? So that's even better. There we go. I like that. From 1840. Indicate state that no one forced them into this work. Ooh, a simpler sentence for me. That's good. They could quit at any time, right? Voluntarily assumed. No one forced them. They're at liberty to withdraw. They can quit at any time. Whenever they become galling or irksome. Sorry about that. Let's see. I'm not even going to include that part. They admit that there are negatives in working for the factory. And I want my reader to know specifically, I'm talking about those restraints. That is restraints. Oops, admit. That is restraints. All right, so they admit that there are negatives in working for the factory. But they also receive more pay than most women in other jobs. There we go. So that is how I have summarized, how I have paraphrased this evidence from right here. And I've talked a lot about this in class, that it's not good enough just to have an opinion. Where can you back it up with something primary, even a good secondary source, primary whenever we can get them. So here is my evidence. Here's what one of the women said herself, and here is my paraphrase of it. Now we need to get into that analysis part. What does this evidence mean? What conclusions can be drawn? So what? What other questions does it bring up? And I'm going to go back to my topic sentence again, because this is the focus. Although some people criticize the placement of women in textile mills, claiming that the physical and emotional health of women suffered, the workers themselves argued that overall they benefited from the work. Okay, I want to go back to that. All right, how I start out here may not be how I end up. Let's see how this goes. There is no doubt that the work in the early 1800s was difficult. Women and children worked 12 to 14-hour days. Five and a half to 6 days a week in bad conditions by any standard. Now, where'd you get that information from for this? You can cite me, all that background information, Reinhardt, 2020. There is no doubt. Many men may have preferred that women stay out of the workplace, but women argued that, let's see, where do I want to go with this? Or maybe I want to change. Yeah, let's see. Stay out of the workplace. And this piece in the Lowell offering was a response to one of those men's concerns. Brownson, 1840. Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's figure out where I want to go next. All right, I think I'm just going to go for my so what. Actually, lots more could be included here. But I'm going to go for my so what question. It is important to read what the women themselves felt about their working conditions, nope, about the negatives and positives of working in the textile mills. I'm going to go ahead and repeat textile mills again, rather than just mills, just as a reminder to the reader that that's what we're talking about here. And this is my so what. It's important that we read what the actual women said. That's why I really wanted to focus on this. And that's what I have in there. And before we go to conclusion, I just want to briefly show again. So this evidence, this paraphrase, strictly stays with this evidence. It doesn't go into the actual conditions. I get into that in the analysis. That's where more information can appear. For the paraphrase, I'm not adding anything that isn't actually said here. All right, so now we can go to conclusion. And I should be able to wrap this up in a sentence. I thought I had something, then I lost it. I'm going to go back up to my topic sentence here. In fact, just for my own sake, I'm going to copy this down here. Now, it can't be exactly the same thing, but it should be fairly close. We're summarizing the information that was included in this paragraph. So I'm going to remind myself of that by having it on the same page here, just as a guide. Then I'm going to delete it. There is evidence to illustrate that the women themselves were grateful for the work. That might work. Overall, they benefited from the work. Can I imply gratefulness into that? That's a possible interpretation. Even with I don't want to use negatives again. Even with there is a word I'm missing, and if we were together in class, I know one of you would supply it for me. Let me think of it. What is it? You probably already have it. I'm going to go with unfavorable. That's not the word I'm trying to think of, though. Unfavorable. There we go. Working conditions. There we go. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. That's pretty good work right there. So now if I were to put this into a paragraph, okay, then what I would do is I would copy all of this, open up a Word document, and paste it, and take out the whole table thing, and see if it still flows. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to take this, paste it, this, paste it, this, paste it, and one more, this, and paste it. Okay, sorry, I took it out of the table and didn't want you to have to be watching for that. I'm going to take my highlight out. And now I have a pretty complex paragraph. Now, some things might still need to be changed around, and some of the wording I'm not very happy with. And some of the words, I can find better words for them. But now if we read this, Although some people criticize the placement of women in textile mills, claiming that the physical and emotional health of women suffered, the workers themselves argued that overall they benefited from the work. We are under restraints, but they are voluntarily assumed, and we are at liberty to withdraw from them whenever they become galling or irksome. Wages of factory girls are higher than those of females engaged in most other occupations. The workers themselves, as demonstrated in this factory newsletter from 1840, state that no one forced them into this work. They could quit at any time. They admit that there are negatives in working for the factory, that is, restraints, but they also receive more pay than most women in other jobs. There is no doubt that the work in the early 1800s was difficult. Women and children worked 12 to 14-hour days, 5.5 to 6 days a week, in bad conditions by any standard. Many men may have preferred that women stay out of the workplace, and this piece in the Lowell Offering was a response to one of those men's concerns. It is important to read what the women themselves felt about the negative and positives of working in the textile mills. There is evidence to illustrate that the women themselves were grateful for the work, even with the unfavorable working conditions. Pretty darn good paragraph, if I do say so myself. So now that is your task. Your task is to take the piece on child labor that we did together, and hopefully you finished as a class before watching this, and to take 3 of those paragraphs that are numbered. Number 1 probably won't do it for you. Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Take 3 of those and write a paragraph like this. Same thing. If you had to summarize portions of the effects of child labor, the effects of child labor bans, if you had to come up with 3 paragraphs, I want you to use this Tepac structure to do that. So the goal is that you will have 1 of them turned in by the end of class, and 3 of them done before the next class. And I'm going to pause it here now and switch back to the other instructions.